Good evening, friends. So, today is my fourth podcast on IT career. One of the things I have to tell you, being associated with state of the art modern industries, here the skills will rise and fall just like an empire. Some days, some skill will be in hot demand, in other day, other skill will not be in hot demand. Now, I'm going to tell you about the emerging skills of embedded system that actually was the skill in the year of 2000 2001 when telecom was very hot. But then for almost 2 decades embedded system engineers fell behind cloud data science, etc. But all of a sudden in last 12 months or so again they are back in forefront, and I think right now given the same years of experience probably you will be able to earn the maximum salary in embedded system compared to any other IT verticals. And I'm just going to tell you this amazing story. How did that happen in the last 1 or 2 years? And it's a case study to tell you that how you have to be very careful about your IT career, look into how defined industry verticals are booming versus busting. So this is a case stories of booming and busting both. So let me start with a little bit of interesting history. So this whole podcast is sponsored by crackingitjobs.com. Now crackingitjobs.com is a portal. It's actually software as a service system. Right now it's a free. It offers you a lot of things starting from coding assessment test to coding practice. There is a coding club where you can actually get a lot of challenging coding algorithm. And also there are a lot of sponsor, let a lot of companies sponsor for coding club for cracking IT jobs. So if you are a freshers and willing to look for a good internship, our database is shared with the companies and you can actually have a good internship provided you are interested to share your performance of coding club with the company. So anyhow, let me come back to an amazing rise, fall, and rise of a IT vertical to tell you how IT career may works, and it's pretty unpredictable. So, what is the life of an embedded system engineer? Typically, there are a lot, but you are defined by mostly four kind of skills. One is definitely C, C++. Right now, you can also write codes in MicroPython because these are the only code that you can write in microprocessors, and there are different kind of microprocessor of different grade. You'll be knowing from ESP to STM to many things. These days even single board computers like Jetson Nano or Raspberry Pi also is a part of that. And then one of the most critical component of embedded system engineering is the understanding of the hardware and its component. Yeah, many times you have to debug where it might be due to not getting a sufficient voltage, not getting sufficient current, not because of the sufficient grounds. You need to have a minimum level of engineering skill, not a hell lot, but at least have a sufficient to debug. And then you have to understand what is RTOS or real-time operating system. There are many of them. Like for example, you can have a Raspberry and many kind of, I would say the custom-made or a hardware-made RTOS system that you have to run your programming on. And you have to know the memory management, speed management, processor management, and allocation of the resource very well. Because you will be running a program in a very thin resource of couple of megabyte of RAM and couple of megahertz of processing speed. Right now, those things are increasing, but still, you really need to take care of those threads very carefully. Otherwise, it will be a complete mess. So it's not so easy to be an embedded software developer because you have to know electronics, you have to also know a very fundamental of operating systems and how to manage resources and etc. So that's why it's very difficult to get a very good embedded software engineer, and it takes time because you need to have an in-depth understanding of computer science and electronics engineering. So basically, if you look at it, what's You might ask the question, what is behind the rapid rise of this industry vertical or the industry scale? So it's basically due to the explosion in electric vehicle market. Now, then it's also the drones market, and then there is this, UGVs or unmanned vehicle market for the military. So last two icons are for military, and the bottom I've drawn the picture of Internet of Things, so the connected device. So this is what happened. The electric vehicle was holding promise, but really not getting to a very fast price. Even I'm going to show you some statistics. You see how the market for electric vehicles are exploding in last 2 3 years. So yes, electric vehicles always required a lot of embedded system engineering, but the market was not really exploding. But now for the last 2 years, it is. So this is one of the primary driver for hiring so many embedded system engineers. The same thing happened with the IoT. IoT started with 2012 with a lot of promise of the connected devices. So obviously, you need a lot of embedded system engineering, but it never picked up because most of the IoT projects were abandoned or didn't go to successful implementation and stuff like that. But what happened? The pandemic has changed a lot. So what happened during pandemic? People were not coming to the factories and places, and all of a sudden demand for connected devices skyrocketed because even the people who have to run the factory, they realize that they have to have some kind of automation in connected devices. So the investment in connected devices was sharply rising, and it is the same thing happened with the patients as well. I mean, during the time of pandemic, many normal patients could not go to the doctor. So what can you do? You did a lot of remote patient monitoring, and remote patient monitoring can be done only with the medical devices and stuff like that. So right now there's been an explosion of home-based medical devices where home healthcare can be very important. So it's actually coming from all around the world. And what I've seen, and this is what I'm not telling you from Google, but looking at how much in my company, what I've seen, what the people get different offers because I have to always constantly battle to keep the talents. The embedded system engineers, especially those are good ones, they all of a sudden increase the salary between 2 to 3 times in last 2 years. And I've not seen anything like that in the industry before, not even for the cloud or AI. And this all happened. And I knew something was happening, and it took me some time to understand what's happening. And it's very clear that so many explosive technologies are growing, and all of them require embedded system as their primary, source or primary base. So that was the reason why embedded system is in a very hot demand. Now let's look at the sum of the growth of the business in IoT. So if you look at it, IoT, even 2021 last year, it's really the growth was not that kind of a very high in a way. But as the pandemic year started, all of a sudden it's jumped from 12% to 20%, almost like the growth. You can say year to year, it's called compound, annual growth. That was all of a sudden become double from 12% to all the way to the between 22 to 23%. If you look at the IoT or the connected device market, which actually is the biggest employer for all the embedded skilled people. Same thing if you look at the EV market. So it is going very slowly. In fact, surprisingly, that till 2018-19, the growth rate was less than 2%. See, if the market has a less than growth of less than 2%, and if you have a skill in that market, it's not be that hot. But now look at the curve. Since 2020, there is a skyrocketed growth of the EV market. So why does that thing happen? It's thanks to Elon Musk. The Tesla becomes successful. It has at least a car that can compete with combustible engine and actually surpass it in all the account. And I love to drive my own Tesla as well, and everybody does. And all of a sudden, every car industry started getting threatened from 2017 and 18, and they realized that EV is no longer an option; it's a main competition. If they can't make the EVs, they will die. So what happened is all the big car manufacturer in the world, they started investing into EV market, and they did not have the DNA for the EV because EV is entirely different concept as a technology compared to our current car, because the dual motors, the battery management system, then the operating system has no relationship at all with that existing car. So obviously, all of a sudden, and they didn't know how to do the best. So all of a sudden, there was a huge demand for embedded system engineering because all the car companies started investing into it. Because without investment means they have virtually accepted their death or sentence. So that actually generated a huge amount of demand for these embedded system skills people. Now, what I would like to tell you is that whether you are in embedded system, cloud, or mobile, your fundamental of coding is all the same. Now, we want you to be very good coder in cracking itjobs.com. So we have a lot of books for coding challenges. So one of the things we do is that we have a selected 50 best questions on coding. So you'll enjoy different kind of coding challenges. Then we have a coding club to practice those challenges. You'll be getting 10 very good questions in our coding club in crackingitjobs.com that has started. You'll be also able to do a lot of coding practice there. So keep it in mind, be it embedded system or be it in cloud or anywhere, your fundamentals are always in coding and algorithm. So thank you all. So by this, I'm concluding today's podcast. As I said, keep your eyes open. This IT industry is huge, just like an ocean, and lot of skills are getting ups and down, and you need to closely watch on it. Thank you.